So another common question, here I am on the Healthy Hindustan series. When I get pregnant women, a most commonly asked question post-delivery is, what are the foods we should not be consuming during lactation? It's an interesting question and a very important answer as well. Because as first mothers especially, it gets very difficult for us to know whether it is the food that we are consuming that is affecting the baby, or the baby actually has a problem digesting certain kind of foods. So it's very important for you to understand first is that not all the foods that you consume actually go or pass the channel towards the breast milk. So if you are assuming that if you had a chapati, the calories of the chapati or the flavor of the chapati doesn't actually go through the breast milk. It is the energy that the chapati gives, the carbohydrate that gives, helps in making the actual milk. So I'm going to touch upon these few notorious foods that are considered to be not to be consumed, and I would also personally suggest should not be recommended when you're lactating. Let's begin with the first one. The first one that actually crosses the breast milk membrane barrier is your alcohol. Alcohol, caffeine are two things that can enter the breast milk, crosses the membrane and can go to the baby through the milk. So if you are exclusively breastfeeding, something like alcohol stays in your breast milk for at least a couple of hours. I would recommend do not feed your child, or at least wait 6 to 8 hours, or express the milk and don't feed them the next feed. You can always do the important thing is not drink alcohol when you're feeding. Another is caffeine. I understand we have sleepless nights and we are waking up all groggy, and caffeine is something that kickstarts the stimulation, but also caffeine is something that crosses the membrane, enters your breast milk and goes into the child's body. So you might want to rethink and retime when you want to take the caffeine. You could probably take it after you have fed the baby, so at least it is not there in the next milk or out of the system before it enters the breast milk. Next are some of the very gassy foods, as we call it. Foods such as cauliflower, cabbage, dals, pulses are foods that are considered to be gassy. Now, it is highly possible that you as an individual get very uncomfortable eating these foods. The sulfur in the food is something that can cross the membrane and might make your child, if already colic, a little bit more colic. So you would rather avoid consuming these foods in its most raw form, like doing a cabbage salad or just doing a broccoli by itself. It would be better if you either overcook it, or make sure you pressure cook these vegetables, or mash it and have it in the form of soup. So it's in its most ground form, but you're still getting enough fiber from it. The third and we are on number 4. Fourth, milk, dairy. It is believed that many times we want to consume a lot of milk because we are feeding ourselves. Having said that, a lot of times kids, because they are already colic and the intestines are still forming, might not be able to digest the milk that you are consuming. So you might want to hold on to the amount of milk you're consuming. You don't need to drink 5-6 glasses of milk in the day. You can always get your calcium from other vegetables and other sources in the diet. So hold on to the amount. It's very early in the time to figure if your child has any kind of lactose intolerance or is getting uncomfortable with it, because they could probably just be crying or be cranky on another issue rather than just the food. So remember, these are few foods you want to just keep away from. The safer foods are just typically consuming your normal roti, sabzi, dahi, dal, chawal, having a lot of probiotics in your diet, keeping that as your base, making sure the food is not raw. Try and keep it steamed, cooked, boiled, and avoid raw foods as much as you can. Nuts are considered to be very, very safe, and just stay away as much as you can from alcohol, from caffeine, and most definitely from nicotine.